So free agency, even though it's wound down, it's not really over, right? The Lakers still have some moves to make, but news that came out today from Zach Lowe and Brian Windhorst of ESPN was that the league is going to start looking into free agency because of what went down. And this year's free agency, I mean, it shocked me, Alan. I couldn't believe how brazen the teams were in terms of breaking the tampering rules. I mean, look, we know these conversations are happening. It's clear, but teams this year were just completely not trying to hide it at all. I mean, look, we knew 24 hours before free agency even started, we knew that Kemba Walker was going to the Boston Celtics. It wasn't even like 5 minutes into free agency they were announcing that a deal had been reached. We knew a full day in advance that they had been talking, and so now the NBA is going to be looking into that sort of thing. Does that have any impact on the Lakers? It doesn't feel like they were one of the teams doing this year. I mean, I'm sure they were talking to players, but in terms of actually signing a player ahead of time because they were waiting on Kawhi, they weren't one of those squads. But if the league starts really looking into this, is that going to have an impact on the Lakers moving forward and Rob Pelinka and the connections that he can make?
Well, I think it comes down to this. Either you enforce it or you don't enforce it. And I think the entire NBA has been very lenient on, free agency and talking with players and tampering and all that stuff. Now, they were upset at the Lakers and they were upset at Magic Johnson when he's on a nationally televised show and he's, that wink that they were talking about with Paul George. That obviously didn't go very well. That's different. I think the NBA, they probably have it in their mind. Use common sense. Don't gloat about it. Don't brag about it. But if calls are being done in the background, and I think it's pretty fair to say, like you just mentioned, we knew 24 hours before that Kemba's going to go here and this player's going to sign there.
Right.
Well, if we knew that already, that means these teams are already talking to each other. That's up to the NBA to clean up. Enforce it or don't enforce it. And I think there's this middle ground where nobody really knows how much the NBA really cares. And if now this is the first time that they're saying we got to do something about this, then the only way that it's going to change is if teams are reprimanded for reaching out before free agency starts. If agents are warned, if players are warned, and if teams are warned that if you do this, there's going to be repercussions, and then you actually stick it to those teams that don't cooperate with those rules. But the NBA is also, they've been in the middle, so it's like they tell you not to do this, but they also don't reprimand you for doing it. So teams are like, okay, we're going to do it then. So they also can't be in the middle. They got to, decide one way or the other, draw a line right down the middle and say, this is how it's going to be.
Sure, yeah, it's like a speed limit. If every time you went over 65, if that's the limit on the given freeway that you're on or whatever, every time you go over 65, boom, automatic ticket. Well, nobody would speed, but because there's that little bit of leeway, then people go over the speed limit.
Maybe 72. Maybe go
72. There you go. Then you're usually good, right? But it's a tough situation. And you said, look, either enforce it or don't. The more I think about this, the more I lean on the don't side, just because the logistics of trying to enforce this and the kind of Big Brother-esque situation that you put yourself into if you're going to try to enforce it. I think it's tough, and I think it's a bit of a slippery slope. And look, realistically, you can never enforce tampering amongst players. Players are going to talk to each other about their playing situation, about the team that they're with, about what they like, what they don't like, and all of that. Where's the line going to get drawn on what's tampering, what's not? I think it's just going to be so tough to do that if they try to do anything about it, it's going to be a nightmare. So I'd lean more towards the side of, what, let's actually just kind of let it happen, let it go, and see what becomes of it as long as it's not public.
Well, think about this too, Trev. I mean, Kawhi took, I think, 5 days to make a decision, somewhere around there, and 2 days in, everybody's like, what the hell? What is this guy taking so long for? We were only 2 days into free agency,
Which is normal.
For him, it's normal. Yeah. For him to take 5 days, he was deciding between 3 different teams. He was flying from LA to Toronto back to LA. Like, that's kind of how free agency was built, was to give you an opportunity to go with other teams. And I think what's happening is there were players that were already sold on where they were going to play. Let's use Kyrie Irving going to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant going to Brooklyn. These were decisions that were made well before free agency started. So it's not like KD was taking 5 different meetings and then making a decision. So we are in this kind of react immediately, and Kawhi is a great example. He was 2-3 days into free agency, and everybody's like, "What the hell is going on here?" Because we all got accustomed to everybody deciding within the first 3-4 hours where they were going to go. Almost everybody was off the board, literally. Almost everybody was off the board. At least some of these significant names. I don't care one way or the other as long as every team is doing the same thing. So if they enforce it, then enforce it. Everybody abides by it. If it's not a big deal to the NBA, and this just kind of creates this buzz. It creates kind of this unbelievable offseason like the NBA had. It is what it is, but I would love for everybody to be kind of aligned one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think the rules need to be uniform for that. The sense I got from talking to a number of different Lakers fans online and other places and in Las Vegas at Summer League was sort of a sense of frustration because they knew that, hey, if it was the Lakers that had an agreement in place with somebody 24 hours in advance of free agency and that was announced to the public, everyone knew about it. I mean, the tampering cries would just be deafening. People would be losing their minds over that, but other teams are getting away with it. So I think that's another thing too, is the league drawing the line and being able to say, okay, this is where the line actually is, so everyone knows. Then you don't wind up with this, well, these teams can do it, but this team no because they've gotten in trouble in the past or whatever. It needs to just be uniform across the board.
Trev, Lakers are 100%. It's a different gorilla, man. It's a different beast. And, we see it, we notice it, but teams aren't talking. Media is not talking about the Phoenix Suns. They're not talking about the Atlanta Hawks. They're not talking about the Charlotte Hornets. The Lakers they move the needle. That's going to get clicks. That's going to get people to tune in. It's going to get ratings and everything else. But I do agree with you. If the Lakers do something, it's magnified by 10 for every other team. And even you could say, oh well, the Knicks are magnified too, and a couple other teams. It's nowhere near the Lakers.
Not the Lakers with LeBron.
Watch all these shows. Yeah, absolutely. That takes it to another level. Yep. But watch all these shows. Actually, I was thinking about this today. I was sitting back today, and I was asking myself, I'm like, Summer League, let's use this year as an example, Summer League. I really don't, I have no idea who played, like, in that tournament that they do. I have no idea who won Summer League. When the Lakers were in Summer League a couple of years ago and all the young kids were playing, think about how much attention was at Summer League. And I know this year Zion was there. Really, Zion was the only box office sensation that most people were talking about, and then he was out 9 minutes into the first game. But I just use that as an example because whatever the Lakers do, everybody's got an eye on them. Giannis's brother signs a 2-way contract with the Lakers. That's a story, He got drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers as 60th. I didn't know that until he ended up being a 2-way player with the Lakers,
Right.
So, the Lakers, I think, play under a different set of rules. Some of it, they've made mistakes to kind of highlight their own. They need to kind of be in the background a little bit more. But most of it is because the Lakers pays a lot of bills for a lot of people.